Have you ever seen something, just one object, and known in your bones that your entire life was about to change? Welcome to Twilight Tales, where true emotion meets unforgettable stories. And if you're visiting us for the first time, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes the stories that change us come from the places we least expect. This story begins with a necklace. Not a diamond. Not some priceless antique. Just a simple silver butterfly pendant that belonged to an 8-year-old girl named Lily, a girl who vanished without a trace 2 years ago. Her father, Daniel Cross, is one of the wealthiest men in the city. A tech mogul. A man who built empires out of code and contracts. But nothing in his billion-dollar world could prepare him for the day Lily disappeared. No ransom note. No leads. Just gone. The only thing she never went anywhere without was that necklace. The butterfly was her mother's. When she died, Lily wore it every day. Daniel remembered fastening it around her neck that very morning, just hours before everything fell apart. 2 years passed. The police gave up. The world moved on. But Daniel didn't. He never stopped looking. Never stopped hoping. Until one random afternoon, while driving through the rougher part of town, he saw something that froze him in place. A young Blackstreet kid, maybe 12 or 13 years old, playing with a tennis ball outside a corner store, wearing Lily's butterfly necklace. It wasn't a copy. It was her necklace. And in that moment, Daniel didn't care about the rules. He didn't care about logic. He had only one thought: that's my daughter's. And that boy knows something. What came next would unravel everything he thought he knew, about his past, his grief, and a boy he never imagined would lead him back to the one thing he wanted more than money, more than success. Oh, stay with us. Because what Daniel discovers will change everything. Before Daniel Cross was a billionaire, before his face appeared on magazine covers and his name echoed through boardrooms, he was just a father who loved his little girl more than life itself. Her name was Lily. His wife, Michelle, had passed away from cancer when Lily was only 6. After that, she became Daniel's entire world. He poured his energy, his time, and even his fortune into creating a stable, joyful life for her. He adjusted his business schedule so he could make her breakfast. He personally walked her to school every morning. Every night they'd read the same story, The Girl Who Followed Butterflies. It was her favorite. And she wore a butterfly necklace every single day. It had been Michelle's. A delicate silver pendant that Daniel had given her when they first found out she was pregnant. Lily clung to it like it was part of her mother, like it was the one thing keeping her close. Then, on a warm spring afternoon 2 years ago, Lily vanished. One moment she was in the schoolyard playing on the swings. The next, gone. There were no signs of struggle. No witnesses. No clues. Just a small footprint near the back fence, and silence. Daniel went to war with the world after that. He launched his own investigations, hired the best private detectives, and used every ounce of influence he had. News channels ran stories for weeks. Police plastered flyers across the state. Tips poured in, but none led anywhere. The most painful part? Lily's necklace was never found. He remembered fastening it on her neck that morning, right before she skipped down the stairs to school. It was one of the last things he saw her wear. The necklace, to Daniel, became more than a piece of jewelry. It became a symbol of everything he lost, and everything he still hoped to find. 2 years later, he lived alone in a penthouse with a view of a city he no longer cared about. The walls were lined with photos of Lily. Her toys were still in her room, untouched. Her favorite stuffed bunny, Mr. Waffles, rested on her pillow like he was waiting too. Every week, Daniel still sent his team leads from tip lines and dark corners of the internet. Every night, he replayed her laughter in his head. And every morning he wondered if this was the day something, anything, would break the silence. And then one day it did. Not through a phone call. Not through a breakthrough. But through a glance, out of a car window, at a kid who shouldn't have had that necklace. A kid who unknowingly carried the one clue Daniel had never stopped chasing. Daniel wasn't supposed to be in that part of town. It was one of those neighborhood city developers always promised to fix, but never did. Rows of boarded-up shops, cracked sidewalks, sirens in the distance. Not the kind of place you'd expect to see a man with a net worth in the billions. But on that day, Daniel had asked his driver to take the long route back from a city council meeting. He wasn't in a rush. He just needed air. Space to think. Or maybe, just maybe, he was chasing a feeling. One of those strange, inexplicable instincts that whispers, "Keep going, don't turn yet." As they passed an old convenience store with faded red letters and bars on the windows, something caught Daniel's eye. He tapped the window without even thinking. Stopped the car. The driver pulled over. Across the street stood a young black boy, barely a teenager, dressed in a torn hoodie, jeans that didn't fit, and shoes with holes in the soles. He was bouncing a tennis ball off a brick wall over and over, completely lost in his rhythm. But that wasn't what stopped Daniel cold. It was what hung around the boy's neck. A small silver butterfly. Simple. Elegant. Slightly tarnished. Identical to the one Daniel had given Michelle. The one Lily never left home without. At first, Daniel thought it had to be a replica. A coincidence. But the longer he stared, the more certain he became. He got out of the car without a word. The boy didn't notice him at first. He was focused on the ball. Daniel approached slowly, trying to process what he was seeing. When he was just a few feet away, Daniel called out, "Hey kid." The boy stopped. Looked up, cautious. Eyes sharp. Hands clenched. Daniel pointed at the necklace. "Where did you get that?" The boy glanced down, instinctively gripping the pendant. "Why?" he asked. Daniel stepped forward, his voice cracking. "That belonged to my daughter. It's hers." The boy's expression shifted instantly, from suspicion to alarm. He backed away a step. "I didn't steal it." "Then where did you?" Before Daniel could finish, the kid took off. He ran. Down the alley. Past the dumpsters. Around the corner. "Hey!" Daniel shouted. "Wait!" But the boy was fast, street fast. And Daniel, wearing Italian leather shoes and a tailored coat, was not. Still he chased him. Through puddles. Across broken pavement. Down a side street that curved sharply behind an old warehouse. He didn't care if he looked foolish. He didn't care if he tripped. He only cared about that necklace. Because if the boy had it, then Lily might still be out there. And for the first time in 2 years, Daniel had something real. Daniel rounded the corner, heart pounding, lungs burning. He hadn't run like this in years. But something deep inside him, deeper than logic, deeper than fear, drove him forward. He nearly stumbled when he turned into a narrow alley and saw the boy crouched behind a dumpster, panting. The kid tried to run again, but Daniel raised both hands. "Stop, please. I'm not here to hurt you." The boy hesitated. His chest heaved as he stared, weighing fight or flight. But something about Daniel's eyes, broken, desperate, human, froze him in place. "I just want to talk," Daniel said, breath ragged. "I swear." After a tense pause, the boy finally stood. Cautiously. One hand still over the necklace. "You said it belonged to your daughter?" he asked. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes. Her name was Lily. She went missing 2 years ago." The boy's eyes widened. "Wait, Lily?" Daniel felt his knees wobble. "You knew her?" I think I did," the boy said. "A girl. Blonde hair. Small. She used to be with this older woman sometimes. They stayed near the shelters." Daniel blinked rapidly. "You saw her?" "Not recently. But back then, yeah. She gave me this necklace. Said it was special." Tears welled in Daniel's eyes. "Why did she give it to you?" The boy looked down at his feet. "I was hungry. She traded it for food. I told her not to. But she said she'd be okay." Daniel's voice cracked. "Do you know where she went?" The boy shook his head. "She disappeared not long after. People said, well, some bad people were looking for her." A heavy silence fell between them. Daniel stepped closer. "What's your name?" "Marcus," the boy said. "I'm 12. Daniel offered a shaky hand. "Thank you for not pawning it." Marcus shrugged. "I couldn't. Felt wrong. Like it wasn't really mine." Daniel stared at him for a long moment, his emotions tangled. Relief, pain, hope. "You just gave me more than the police have in 2 years," he whispered. Marcus looked skeptical. "Really?" "Yes." Daniel nodded. "You gave me proof she's alive. That she was out there, fighting to survive." A flicker of pride touched Marcus's face. Daniel glanced down. "You hungry?" The boy hesitated. "A little." "Come with me," Daniel said softly. "Let me get you something warm. And if you don't mind, I'd like to hear everything you remember." Marcus looked at him for a long time, still guarded. But finally, slowly he nodded. And as they walked side by side out of that alley, one in a $1,000 suit, the other in threadbare clothes, it was no longer just about the necklace. It was about 2 lives that had intersected for a reason. Because somewhere out there was a little girl still missing. And now, they were going to find her. Together. The diner was old, but clean. The kind of place where the booths squeaked and the coffee was always fresh. Daniel and Marcus sat in a corner near the window, far from curious eyes. A steaming plate of waffles sat untouched in front of Marcus. He kept glancing at Daniel, unsure if this was a setup or some weird test. But Daniel didn't pressure him. He simply sipped his tea, eyes scanning a faded photo of Lily on his phone, her gap-toothed grin beaming up at them. Marcus finally spoke. She used to sit just like that, he said, curled up with a book. She'd read to the smaller kids in the shelter. Nobody else did that. Daniel looked up, startled. She stayed in a shelter? Not for long, Marcus replied. A few nights, maybe. Then she vanished. I asked around. A guy named Rico said she might have been picked up. Daniel's stomach turned. Picked up by who? Marcus dropped his gaze. Some bad people take kids off the street. You don't ask too many questions or you end up missing too. Daniel clenched his fists under the table. Why didn't the shelter call the police? They're scared, man, Marcus said. They don't want trouble. Most people think those kids just wander off. Daniel leaned back, stunned. He donated millions to programs like that. Programs he thought were safe. You said she gave you the necklace for food, Daniel asked gently. Where was that? Behind the East District bus terminal, Marcus said. There's a little encampment there. People come and go. She was with a woman, tall, always wore this red jacket. Looked tired, real tired. Daniel's eyes sharpened. Red jacket. Yeah. You know her? Daniel didn't answer. But something in his memory stirred. That jacket, the woman, it sounded familiar. His private investigators had flagged a blurry CCTV image months ago. A child with a woman in a red coat outside a soup kitchen. It had been dismissed as inconclusive. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a small tablet, and flipped through folders until he found the image. He turned the screen toward Marcus. This her? Marcus squinted, then nodded slowly. Yeah, that's her. That's the lady Lily was with. Daniel's pulse quickened. He tapped the screen, zooming in. The timestamp matched the same week Lily went missing. Somehow the connection had slipped through the cracks. Why was Lily with her? Daniel asked. Marcus frowned. She never said. But I think they were hiding. Lily used to talk about getting home. Said her dad would be looking. Daniel swallowed hard. She remembered me? Every day, Marcus said softly. She talked about you like you were Superman. A deep, aching silence followed. Daniel sat still for a long time, absorbing every word. Then quietly he said, We're going to find her. I'm not giving up. Marcus studied him. You really care, huh? Daniel nodded. More than anything in this world. Marcus hesitated. Then he reached into his hoodie pocket and slid something across the table. It was a crumpled napkin. On it, scribbled in shaky pencil, was an address. What's this? Daniel asked. She told me once. If anything ever happened to her, go here. But I didn't have the guts. Daniel stared at the address. It wasn't far. And for the first time he had more than hope. He had a lead. The sun had started to dip as Daniel pulled up to the address Marcus had given him. It wasn't a house or a building. It was an abandoned daycare on the city's edge, its paint peeled, its windows fogged, and its playground rusted and still. Daniel sat in his car for a full minute, staring. This place. This was where his little girl might have been? Or still was? He stepped out, heart hammering, and approached the front door. It creaked open under his hand. Inside the silence was thick. The reception desk was covered in dust. Paper butterflies still hung from the ceiling, faded by time and sun. Hello, he called out. Is anyone here? No answer. He moved slowly, every step deliberate. In the back he found signs of life, an old mattress tucked behind shelves, a pile of canned food, some worn books, and a drawing. It was a child's drawing, stick figures holding hands. One wore a red jacket. Another had big blue eyes and short hair. The third figure wore a cape. Labeled, Daddy. Daniel's throat tightened. She'd been here. There was no doubt now. Just then a door creaked behind him. He turned sharply, heart racing, only to find a woman standing there, tense and thin, wrapped in a red jacket. Who are you? She asked, instantly defensive. Daniel raised both hands. I'm not here to hurt you. My name is Daniel Cross. I'm looking for my daughter, Lily. The woman's eyes flicked to the drawing. Her expression changed instantly. Lily, she whispered. You're her father? Daniel nodded, eyes wet. She talked about you, the woman said softly. Said you'd find her. Where is she? He asked, barely breathing. The woman shook her head. I don't know where she is now. I kept her safe for a while, fed her, kept her hidden. But when word got out that someone was looking for a blonde girl with blue eyes, it got dangerous. I had to move her. Dangerous. Daniel echoed. Why would anyone? They wanted her because of who she is. Not just because she's a kid but because she's your kid, she said. There are people who make money selling kids like her to the highest bidder. Daniel's face darkened. Why didn't you call the police? I tried. They didn't believe me, she said bitterly. They saw a homeless woman in a red jacket and thought I was crazy. Daniel exhaled slowly, struggling to keep his emotions in check. Please, he said. Anything you can tell me, where she went, who helped her, anything. The woman reached into her coat and pulled out something, a worn notebook. Inside were names, times, and scribbled maps. I wrote everything down, she said. Just in case. Daniel took the notebook with shaking hands. I owe you, he said. No, the woman replied. You owe her. That little girl never gave up on you. As Daniel walked back to his car, notebook clutched tightly, something inside him shifted. This wasn't just a missing child case anymore. It was a race against people who thought she was gone, forgotten, unprotected. But they were wrong. Because he was coming. And this time he wasn't stopping. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat at his desk, eyes scanning every scribbled page in the red jacket woman's notebook. Addresses. Names. Arrows pointing to places in the city that no one talked about. Rundown warehouses, shelters, alleys, places forgotten by the system. One name kept repeating, the broker. No last name. No phone number. Just that title, and a location marked with a red X downtown. By sunrise, Daniel was parked outside an old industrial building on the East End. The windows were covered with grime. The door had no sign. But two men in dark coats stood out front, watching everything. Daniel didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the door, heart pounding. I'm here to talk, he said to one of the men. About a girl. About my girl. The guard glanced at the other, then stepped aside. Inside was nothing like Daniel expected. No flashing lights. No caged children. Just a sleek office, almost eerily quiet. A man in a gray suit sat at a steel desk, reading a file. He didn't look up. You're Daniel Cross, the man said. I've heard of you. And you're the broker? Daniel asked coldly. Some people call me that, the man replied with a shrug. Depends on what I'm brokering. Daniel stepped forward. 2 years ago my daughter disappeared. I found someone who says she was taken by your people. The broker finally looked up, eyes sharp. Mr. Cross, you run a multi-billion-dollar empire. You should know how markets work. People, especially young, valuable people, are currency in some circles. It's unfortunate, but... He trailed off as if Daniel would nod in understanding. Instead, Daniel's jaw clenched. Where is she? You assume I still have her. That's not how this works. Once a deal is done, it's done. Daniel slammed his hand on the desk. Tell me where she is. The broker didn't flinch. You really think you're the first desperate father to come here, waving money and threats? Daniel leaned in. No. But I am the first with the reach to make sure every inch of your world burns. Silence. Then the broker smirked. There was a child. Blonde. Blue eyes. Wore a necklace shaped like a butterfly. She was moved through our network, briefly. But she was difficult. Daniel's heart leapt. What do you mean? She kept escaping, the broker said, almost amused. Running away. Screaming for her dad. Eventually we lost track of her. Last I heard, someone saw her on the south side. Near the river. Daniel turned to go. Oh, and Mr. Cross, the broker called after him. Be careful. If someone else has her now, they won't be as careless as we were. Daniel didn't respond. He was already out the door, dialing Marcus. I have a new lead, he said. South side. Near the river. We need eyes on every block. She's out there. And she's still running. The riverfront was bleak. Old warehouses leaned into the wind like tired ghosts, rusted fences groaning against the current. Daniel moved quickly, heart hammering with every step. He wasn't alone this time. Marcus had mobilized a quiet team of investigators, spreading them across every alley, shelter, and pier. But Daniel had a lead the others didn't. A tip from a former dock worker who remembered seeing a young blonde girl digging through trash bins with a scruffy man watching nearby. He said she wore a butterfly necklace. He said she always looked scared. It was just enough to push Daniel down one narrow gravel road behind a shipping container lot. He spotted the van first. Rust-colored. Windows blacked out. Parked beside a crumbling boat repair shed. He approached quietly. There were faint sounds coming from inside the shed. A soft voice. A child's voice. He moved to the door, heart in his throat. Through a gap in the boards he saw her. Thin. Dirty. Hair tangled into blonde ropes. But those eyes, blue, bright, and defiant, just like her mother's. It was Lily. Alive. Daniel nearly burst through the door right then, but stopped cold when he saw the man with her. Mid-40s. Wild-eyed. Holding a bowl of soup in one hand and a knife in the other. "You'll eat this or you don't eat at all," the man growled. Lily sat silently, clutching her necklace. Daniel backed away slowly and whispered into his earpiece. "I found her. Get me backup." Quietly. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Then, movement. Marcus appeared, gun drawn, flanking from the left. Another man came in from the rear. When they burst through the door, the kidnapper turned, startled, but didn't have time to react. They pinned him in seconds. Daniel rushed in, eyes only on Lily. She stared at him, frozen. Unsure. "Lily," his voice broke. "Baby, it's me. It's Daddy." She blinked. Slowly stood. Then, like the breaking of a dam, she ran to him. He dropped to his knees just as she slammed into his chest, sobbing into his shirt, her little hands grabbing fistfuls of his coat. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. He held her like he'd never let go again. "I never stopped looking," he said. "Never." Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance. But inside the broken-down shed, time stopped. Daniel lifted her up gently, carrying her outside. She held tightly to him, her head tucked under his chin, that silver butterfly glinting in the early light. The nightmare was over. But something deeper had awakened in Daniel. He had seen the forgotten corners of the city. He had met the people who go unseen. And he had realized how close the darkness was, even to someone like him. This wasn't just the end of a search. It was the beginning of a mission. Daniel stood on the steps of the hospital, Lily asleep in his arms, her little body finally at peace after so much chaos. She had eaten. She had smiled. And most importantly, she was safe. Reporters tried to get close. Microphones waved. Cameras flashed. But Daniel didn't speak to them. Not yet. His eyes scanned the crowd until he saw him, Jamal, standing to the side, hands in his pockets, still wearing that same worn hoodie. Their eyes met. Daniel walked over slowly, Lily still in his arms. "I owe you," Daniel said quietly. "If it weren't for you." Jamal shrugged. "I just did what anyone should do." "No," Daniel said firmly. "You did what no one else did." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside wasn't money. It was something more meaningful, a key. "To what?" Jamal asked, confused. "To a future," Daniel replied. "It's the key to an apartment. Fully paid for. School tuition too. And if you want it, an internship at my company. Real pay. Real mentorship." Jamal stared at him, stunned. "Why?" Daniel looked down at his daughter, then back at the boy who had unknowingly saved her life. "Because you saw her," he said. "When the rest of the world would have looked away, you didn't." A tear slid down Jamal's cheek and he quickly wiped it away. Daniel extended a hand. Jamal took it. And in that handshake, two very different worlds collided, not in conflict but in connection. A billionaire and a street kid. A grieving father and a child of the forgotten. Bound by a necklace, a miracle, and a moment of humanity that defied every expectation. Sometimes it's not the rich or powerful who spark the change. Sometimes it's the one with nothing, who gives everything. And that, dear viewer, is what we must remember. This wasn't just a story about a missing girl. It was about the quiet heroes. The overlooked. The underestimated. Because the world changes not with grand speeches, but with small acts of kindness. A boy who picked up a necklace. A father who refused to give up. And the truth that no life is too small to matter. If this story moved you even a little, don't just scroll past. Like, share, and subscribe to Twilight Tales. We tell stories that the world needs to hear. And one question before you go: if you saw someone like Jamal, would you stop? Tell us in the comments. Because your voice, your empathy, could be the beginning of someone else's miracle.